from third is Suarez. Goodell comes running in. He's under it, makes the catch. Here's the throw to the plate. It's in the air. He is out! Cameron Red hangs on! Oh, man, what a play! Deep to right field. Way and second
And welcome back to the Stupid Monday podcast. As much as I would love to complain about how bad this team has been the past week, because they've been bad. This is the trade deadline show, so I'm going to keep it on that. We're going to stick to that. So we're going to go over some rumors that are circulating on social media, and then we have some predictions that we're going to show using the MLB, or I guess it's not MLB, it's just baseball trade values. I know it's not completely accurate, but it's the best way to put together mock trades.
Do you know that?
Well, I'll be honest with you. They're a lot more accurate than people give it credit for. Like
Lately, they've gotten better. When you first started sending them, they were not in the same area code. But honestly, when I was scrolling through today, I didn't think it was bad.
No, they a lot of actual trades they've gotten accurate, and it's like they didn't change the numbers, because of after the trade happened, I should say, it was prior. So, I mean, I don't know. It's ballpark, but we'll see. It's not, letter of the law, but it's better than nothing, I guess, is the best way to put it. So let's talk needs, I guess. The first one, it definitely being a right-handed outfield bat. Brandon Marsh does not have a hit in the second half of the season. It's been bad. It's been really bad offensive for him. It's been this is kind of 2 years in a row now where he was like the team's best offensive player in April and then totally kind of disappeared the rest of the season. I don't know what's going on there. Rojas is still playing center the majority of the time. I don't know. The defense has gotten better. He still makes boneheaded mistakes. He's constantly getting thrown out on the bases, on the rare chances he does get on, because he still does not hit. Nick Castellanos has gotten going. Look, there was no moving him anyway. Left and center, they need upgrades with right-handers. There's a lot of lefties in this lineup, obviously. Marsh cannot hit lefties. It has to be a right-handed bat. So that's number one. Number two is definitely a reliever. Outside of Jeff Hoffman, everyone's kind of started to leak. Kirkring's leaking. I think it's just he's not used to this kind of workload. I'd like for them to be able to back him off maybe for a couple weeks, maybe a month, where he's going maybe every 3 days. That would be nice. Obviously, right now, they just don't have a lot of options because Dominguez is struggling. Soto was good, and then they put him in these high leverage spots, and he, pieced down his leg again. Alvarado's been really bad. Strom gave up a few runs here and there, but overall still solid. That's number two. And three, I don't know if they need a starter, but it's a rumor that's come up that they've looked at Jack Flaherty of the Tigers and they've looked at Crochet on the White Sox. I have a starter I'd like them to look at. So I don't know, a lot there. I don't know what you think. I know a lot of people have kind of put this as, why are they worried about this? They need that. I know they only really made one substantial trade last year in Michael Lorenzen for Hassan. What was his name? Hao-Yu
Lee.
Hao-Yu Lee. All right. Yeah, I mixed like four names together there. And then they traded Bailey Falter for the dude that puts his phone in his back pocket. I know that wasn't a lot, so it's like confused people. But 2022, they made 4 trades for players that were on the playoff roster: Edmundo Sosa, Brandon Marsh, Noah Syndergaard, and David Robertson, all separate trades. So they could make 4 trades. Dave Dombrowski has done it in Philly before, and he has the farm system do it. Shout out to Sean Brennan, who was surfing some podcasts, and some experts mentioned that behind the Orioles, the Phillies have the second best farm system of buyers. Prospect analysts have said this. So it's a significant difference from years past. But just to you, what's priority one here?
I think priority one for me is someone in the outfield, and it's going to be a platoon, but in my opinion, it needs to be in some capacity the upper half of the platoon. It's not like one of these guys that, Marsh needs a righty to go with him. Don't get like a backup righty that's serviceable. I think they're bottom 5 in the league in OPS for outfielders, and I was reading an article in The Athletic the other day, and I saw a thing, no team with that low of an OPS from their outfielders has won a World Series since I think the 1975 or 74 Dodgers, whatever year they won it then. So like you have to, history shows that in order to, win the World Series and go where this team is set up to go and expects to go, you need power contributions from your outfield. Yeah, Castellanos has been slugging more. The home runs aren't necessarily there, but I think we could kind of say that aside from Turner still being scorching hot, this kind of down stretch for the Phillies overall, it's been good to see Nick hit a little bit. I know I've been very critical of him throughout the course of his tenure here, but especially this season. The home runs aren't necessarily there, but the doubles are starting to come. He had some timely hits between the Pirates series and the Minnesota series. The double against Duran in the ninth was huge. So he's showing a little bit of life, but center field and Marsh in left field are essentially black holes at this point. And Marsh might be hurt. He banged up his shoulder a little bit in the end of the Minnesota series. Thompson said it was his throwing shoulder, not his glove shoulder. But he kind of cost him that last game by pulling up. Seemed like he was scared to go in the wall and make that play on Santana's fly ball to the warning track that tied the game and, kind of screwed them in that series and led to another series loss. So I think they need outfielders. I know Jack Fritz tweeted this out after the Minnesota series. Everyone's arguing whether they need the outfielder, they need a reliever. They're going to get both. It's just a matter of which one's going to be, the more expensive or the bigger, headline piece. Like, is it going to be, I don't expect them to trade for him, but is it going to be a Mason Miller type name or a Tanner Scott as the reliever and then like a Mark Hanna as the outfielder, or is it going to be a Rosarena, Crochet, type pitcher, a Rosarena or Robert, and then like like a margins outfielder or a margins relief pitcher along the way. It's personally, I know my trades will kind of reflect this, but you were mentioning what they've done the last two deadlines, and in 2022, the year they went to the World Series, yes, Marsh is an everyday player now, or looked to be at the start of the season at least. But that year they kind of went, getting guys on the margins. Robertson was, probably one of the more expensive relievers at the time, but it was Syndergaard as your fifth starter to eat up innings, Edmundo Sosa, backup infielder, and Marsh. They used him as a platoon outfielder the year they got him. So, they kind of went on the margins that year. And then last year when the farm system was built up a little bit more, obviously he wasn't great, but he was an all-star last year. So Lorenzen, we kind of saw that step up to go from, the number 5 starter to what you expected. I know, again, not a great prospect and was kind of blocked here, but Hao Yu was number 6 or 7 in our system at the time we traded him. So you're trading a top 10 prospect. You're paying capital for a guy that, you expect to be a 4, maybe a 3. We saw with the no-hitter. He, pitched very well his first few starts here. So they kind of increased their capital that they were willing to spend and willing to go after last year. I think that this year should kind of be the year to go all in. And the reason that I say that is all of these sellers, the high-priced chips that you'd be going all in for, are all guys with team control. Like, if you give up a Justin Crawford or an Andrew Painter for somebody like a Lubab or a Crochet, those guys are under team control until 2026 or 2027.
Yeah.
Yes, it came out today that Crochet wants security wherever he gets traded, and he wants an extension, which, if if Garrett Crochet wants an extension, depending on what the price tag is, I definitely have no problem doing that. When he's healthy, he's a stud. So like, even if you're going the middle of the pack, Taylor Ward has 2 years of team control. I don't know what Arozarena's contract is, but I know they ruled him out. Rooker has another year of team control. These guys aren't just rentals, so I'd be willing to spend more of the farm when your team's, the best record in baseball. They're showing leaks, like you said, but all the guys that they can use to upgrade will be here for more than 3 months to help them in the future.
And I'll just add on to that. You kind of said this is the year. There's no team, for how bad they've looked the past 10 games or so, there's no team in baseball that's really looked better than them this year.
Yeah, if you're just looking at the division, they've been, obviously the Mets are kind of surging and they might pass Atlanta, but right now Atlanta's second place in our division. We are, I think, a game under 500 or 2 games under 500 in our last 17 or 18 games, and we gained a game on Atlanta. Like,
yeah,
they're banged up. They're not. We got JT back, so we're, knock on wood, kind of at full strength right now. Wheeler looked healthy. Ranger looked relatively healthy. Acuna's not coming back. I know you said this a bunch. Acuna's not coming back. Strider's not coming back. Always is out indefinitely. They're banged up, and
Reed now too.
Yeah, they're really banged up, and the Mets are surging a bit. Lindor's really hot right now. Senga's getting hot right now, but you have a really good chance to add and sustain a division lead and kind of, other than a rough April, kind of run the table with the division, which, I knew everybody kind of expected to be close. I know I picked the Braves to win the division again. I think you might have picked the Phillies to win at the beginning of the year.
I could go back and watch that episode. Yeah.
I don't think any of us expected us to kind of run away with the division the way that we've kind of hovered. I think the lowest it got was maybe 7 games so far in this stretch. So I think that, like you said, no teams really pulled away other than, I think we were 4 games up on the best record in baseball at one point. So it's all kind of right there, and we're half a step ahead of the Dodgers, the Orioles, the Guardians, just record-wise right now. So there's no reason not to push the chips into the center.
Yeah, and in the Central, the Brewers might have lost Yelich for the year. The Dodgers obviously have 1,000 pitching injuries, and Mookie Betts is still out. I'm worried they're going to make some big moves, but
they have 1,000 pitching injuries, and he wasn't great numbers-wise, but James Paxton was like 8-3 or 9-3 for them, and they just DFA'd him. So
yeah,
that kind of tells me that they're going to do something big at the deadline as far as like a Crochet or a Flaherty or some sort of starter, and the Phillies have to be ready to counter that.
Yeah, so before we get into what we have, going to rattle off some rumors that shout out to Phillies Tailgate. They've kind of put them all in a row here for me. So I'm just going to rattle a couple off from Scott Lauber. Relievers that have piqued the Phillies' interest: Carlos Estevez of the Angels, Kyle Finnegan of the Nationals, and Tanner Scott of the Marlins. Obviously, Finnegan and Scott are guys we've talked about a lot. Estevez, Angels, whatever. I don't know. Losing organization. Not sure I feel well bringing guys in from there all the time, but that is what it is. Another one from Heyman. Cody Bellinger has been rumored for Philly, but for now they seem focused on slightly less costly righty hitters.
Don't love that. Don't love any of that. Don't want Bellinger, and don't like the idea of slightly less costly.
Yeah, I'm going to see if there's anything else from today. I think those were the 2. And then where's that one that Kerr put out earlier? What time is that one? I know I have that. Oh, here we go. Jeff Kerr of CBS. Scouts that have been monitoring the Phillies minor league teams over the last few weeks: White Sox, Tigers, Rangers, Padres, Rays. So no mention of the Nationals, which is a team I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But I guess we could kind of go down the row here of those 5 teams. If it's White Sox, it's Crochet and Luis Robert. Maybe a little Tommy Pham and Michael Kopech, although there's a report that came out the Phillies have no interest in Tommy Pham. Yeah. The Tigers, that would be Flaherty and Mark Hanna. I think that one's pretty straightforward. The Rangers is interesting. I think it could be a guy I'm going to talk about, Nathan Eovaldi. It could be Kirby Yates. So a couple different pitching options there. The Padres are technically in the playoffs right now, aren't they?
I believe so.
I know in the group chat we kind of talked about the only person that sort of made sense would be Jurickson Profar, just because he's on a 1-year deal, having a really good year. I would invite that. I just don't see why. You know what I mean? The Padres have done a lot. Trading for Cease, who threw a no-hitter today. Trading for a Rise. They've already done a lot this year to try to win. I don't understand why they would turn around and trade the guy who's probably been their most consistent hitter this year. So that one's a little weird to me. And then Rays would be Arozarena. So interesting stuff to monitor there. So, keep an eye on that kind of stuff. But those are probably the names we're talking about with those teams. So let's dive into this. We'll start with you. I have you up here first, but let me make this big screen. I like a big screen. There we go. So I have the 3 trades you want to do up here. So actually, yeah, those are the 3 you put up. Yeah. I did. Yeah, I have a couple similar. Well, I have the same exact package from the Rays. I just was looking at the value, so I just threw Justin Crawford there because his value matches theirs, but obviously I don't think that would be the trade. So yeah, just dive in.
Yeah. So the first trade that I am doing is I'm getting the big outfield bat that we've kind of talked about and a big-ish reliever. I think Pete Fairbanks is pretty big in terms of the reliever market. And I am trading Brian Rincon, William Bergolla, and Mick Abel. Bergola's kind of shot up prospect list lately. Scouts seem to really like him. He's young. The Rays are obviously in need of some middle infield help, I believe. I don't think Curtis Mead, who we actually gave them in the Rule 5 draft for Christopher Sanchez, has been, exactly the top 20 prospect that some lists had him out to be. And we obviously know what happened with Wander Franco. So they're always kind of looking for, selling off guys before they have to pay them. And Mick Abel's last start was really good. So I kind of threw him in there. The Rays are obviously always known for their pitching factory. Pete Fairbanks is interesting to me. He's a guy with 9th inning experience. And I think the thing that killed me last year was Kimbrel being the 9th inning guy, which, yes, he had 9th inning experience. But I just always go back to the game where, we didn't necessarily trust Christopher Sanchez in Arizona, so we pulled him early after one time through the lineup. And we had to use Jeff Hoffman in the 3rd. And that means we had no 9th inning guy other than Kimbrel. And obviously, trusting Sanchez more this year is going to help that case a lot more than another reliever would be. But then if you could kind of get into, a 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th inning scenario where you can, comfortably disperse a righty that's not necessarily Sir Anthony or Kirkring in the 8th or 9th. Fairbanks, in the month of May, he pitched 9 innings, did not give up an earned run. The month of June, he pitched 12 2/3, gave up 3 earned runs. And so far in July, he's pitched 7 and gave up 3 earned runs. He's really good. He's got good stuff. He kind of came onto the scene in that pandemic playoff with the Rays when they went on a little bit of a run. He's got good stuff. He throws hard, and he would give you, a reliable 8th or 9th inning righty, which would allow you to kind of disperse Hoffman or Fairbanks even how you want to. I think Randy, if you have watched baseball the last few years, you know what Randy does, not only against lefties. He's been really good in general lately since May. He started off really slow, but he's been better. But more importantly, the guy is a monster in big moments. I think he has the record for most home runs or most total bases in a playoffs. That year the Rays went to the World Series, he was out of his damn mind, hitting home runs left and right, doubles left and right, doing his poses all over the place. And then the World Baseball Classic was more of the same. So I'm getting him for left field and letting Marsh kind of be the spare platoon for center field and left field, and I'm sticking Randy's bat in the middle of this lineup. It lengthens it whether you want to put him at 5 and move JT down or have Randy protect Harper and move Bohm down. You're just lengthening the lineup, no way around that, and it gives you another righty, which you kind of said, and I agree with that. This team desperately needs in there because they are stacked with lefties. The next trade that I have in there kind of helps the bullpen and the rotation. And when I say that, I'm not saying the rotation's, bad by any means. It's obviously been top 2, top 3, if not 1 in baseball this year from top to bottom. They've been ridiculous, but Rangers struggled a little bit, and the lefties in the bullpen have struggled a little bit. I still trust Strom for the most part. I'm say I'm like 40% trust in Alvarado right now, and I don't want to see Soto later than the 7th inning. So, in my opinion, we saw how it worked the year we went to the World Series. I don't necessarily need him as the closer, but if you can get Crochet and get him in the rotation and your playoff rotation goes, Wheeler, Nola, Crochet, and either Sanchez or Ranger in any order, and then move Sanchez or Ranger, whichever one you don't want in the rotation, into the bullpen as another lefty. We've seen Sanchez run it up to 96 this year. If you throw him in the bullpen and say, hey, you're only going an inning today, give us 98, what does that look like in a playoff series with the sink in the ground ball rate that he has? Getting a Crochet just lengthens your rotation, lengthens your bullpen, and gives you just more depth. I'm trading Painter. Pitching is an unknown commodity in terms of what teenagers will look like when they get to the majors. And again, if you are planning on Andrew Painter contributing in 2025 or 2026 even, then why don't you just go get Crochet, a somewhat proven commodity, at least more proven than Painter is. Let him help you now as opposed to 2 years down the line when, Schwarber's gone and Castellanos is gone. Go get the stud at the deadline and don't worry about the 20-year-old that's coming off Tommy John. Grayson Rodriguez was more heralded than Painter was, according to some rankings last year. And while he's having a pretty good year this year, it's not the ace level contributor or caliber player that the Orioles necessarily need right now, that they're already looking for, pitching at the deadline too. So go get the guy right now that could be a number 2 or a number 3 in a team that has the best record in baseball, and worry about the pitching later. I know it seems like I talk about this every episode that we do, but Brian Barber and Preston Mattingly do such a good job of finding the George Clausens and the Aldegaris and, the Ben Browns from 2 years ago, that they can take these late round picks on and develop and, kind of replenish the system in terms of pitching. Gene Cabrera is another one that's having a big year. So I'm going to trust those guys to be able to develop pitching. Obviously not all of them will have the ace upside that Painter necessarily does, but that's why you trade Painter to get another, young guy that's 25 that has already proven to have ace upside in the majors and not in Double A.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that package is a little bit undervalued, but I don't know. I think the White Sox are. I also think Saltavan's a little undervalued on the calculator. I think he might be a little bit more than 2.2, especially if you look at some of the values in the next trade that I'm going to talk about. But I think, those values between Rincones and Saltavan are a little bit low. And knowing the White Sox organization, I'm willing to bet that they'd be, risky enough to take the gamble on Painter. So I think that package could possibly swing it. I'd be fine throwing in, more depending on what the more is. But yeah, I definitely want a high-end starter to kind of go with it. And the last one, this is really interesting as I was scrolling through. Like I said, I don't necessarily trust the lefties right now. So I'm going to trade for Taylor Rogers. I think the value's so low just because of the contract. I think he's getting $12 million this year and then maybe $12 million each of the next 2 years. I think it was a 3-year, $36 million contract through 2026. So I think that's why the value's so low, because the numbers are, very, very good. His last 7 games, he's gone 6 1/3 with 2 runs. Plus 15 games, he's gone 14 2/3 with 3 runs. And his last 30, he's gone 29 1/3 with 5 runs. So, the ERAs in his last 30 games are 1.5. He's pitched in 42 games this year, 39 innings, 42 strikeouts. He's a funky lefty with a lot of sink on his fastball. So, I don't know if, I don't even know if Ethan Wilson exists anymore. That was kind of before the new regime got in, and I think that was their 2nd round pick or whatever in one of the COVID-related drafts. So, I don't know. And I threw in Pache just because I am so over the Pache experiment. And if you get a Rosarena, I don't think he's really needed anymore. So, I don't know. Taylor Rogers, good lefty, has closed on multiple teams. Minnesota, the Brewers, when they did the Josh Hader trade from San Diego, he also closed in San Diego. And obviously the Giants have Camilo Doval, so I don't think he's closing there. But he's got 9th inning pedigree if, you get into a series against the Dodgers and Ohtani and Freeman are up in the 9th inning. You don't have to be like, oh God, we have to go with Hoffman. He's the closer. You get a lefty out there that's done it before and will be a very tough matchup for, the Freemans, the Ohtanis, the Matt Olsons, the lefties of the National League that might cause some problems in the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, that's not a name I thought about honestly, but I don't hate it at all.
And I know I texted you. I didn't do a trade for it, but after somebody sent the tweet in the group chat about it, I was kind of looking for another platoon type outfielder. I know I said Marsh could be the lefty for left field and center field, but somebody sent that we're currently the betting favorites for Cedric Mullins. I thought about it. I don't I'd have to see what the trade looks like. Obviously, I don't particularly love trading with the favorite in the American League, at least my favorite in the American League. That just kind of gives me a weird taste. But if you want to do the platoon against righties this year, he's slightly above average. It's not awful in terms of the stats. If you wanted to go with that as the platoon, he's hitting 237 against righties. His advanced stuff's okay. It's not anything crazy, but I think his OPS is somewhere in the 740s, which is, obviously better than Rojas. The glove's not bad, but I don't know what it would take to get him from Baltimore, just because I again, when we're this close with them, I don't think the cost would be particularly high, but I don't love the idea of trading somebody that is, in the majors that could potentially come back to bite us in the playoffs. And it seems like we have a surplus of middle infielders that are, somewhat higher end in the farm. And that's all the Orioles have in their system.
Right.
So it would probably be a weird trade like Aldegari or Cabrera, like one of these pitching prospects for him.
Mhm.
And I don't think it's worth it when, you're kind of getting the same exact thing from Marsh. So again, I'd have to see what it would look like, but I don't particularly love Cedric Mullins.
Here's what I'll say. So that would be that they want to platoon center and left. So that that's kind of a decent bench then. Like on days you face lefties, you put Rojas and let's say Randy. You get Randy Rosarino, you put them out there, and then your bench is like Mullins and Marsh. That's not bad. And then it's the opposite on days you face a righty, and you put those two out there. I just think that's interesting. I don't know if they would do that. I'm of the belief that if you can get two outfielders, they probably should.
Yeah.
Because Marsh and Rojas just haven't shown me enough. And I know people want to harp on, oh, well, if Schwarber, Turner, Harper, Real Muto, Bohm, Castellanos hit, it doesn't matter. Well, I mean, they got that team to Game 6 of the NLCS last year. But like if someone else can do something every once in a while, it'd be nice. I know it's 6 guys you're relying on, and 6 is a lot, but dudes like David Freese pretty much won a World Series. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, even look last year, yes, who was the World Series MVP? Was it Garcia or Seager or whoever? But Evan Carter came up in September and just hit 450 in the playoffs.
Yeah.
You need, yes, the Phillies have the payroll to, you can use that excuse, oh, the Stars have to be better. And they were awful in Game 6 and 7. No one's denying that. But you need the complementary guys. There's a reason that it's 26 guys in the regular season and a little bit more in the playoffs. You need those 8 and 9 hitters to do it. I mean, look at the teams that win it every year have somebody that you don't necessarily expect to contribute, have big moments all the time.
Yeah, I mean, Pena and McCormick pretty much beat us in the World Series 2 years ago. It wasn't. Yeah. I mean, Alvarez had the big home run, but other than that, I mean, him, Bregman, Altuve didn't really kill us that series. Mm-mm. It was, great defensive plays by guys like McCormick and Pena hitting. And
Pena won the ALCS MVP and World Series MVP, and now he's a below average replacement level player.
Yeah. So I know I'm kind of ranting here, but I just think that deepening the roster and giving yourself more options for the lineup is something they have to, if it's there on the table, don't say just because we got one, we're good. I mean, go for 2 if it's available and it's not going to cost you anything. I mean, no offense, I'm not crazy about a Pache, Weston Wilson bench in the playoffs. I'm just not. Weston Wilson's a nice piece, sure. He's not a playoff piece for me. I think replacing those 2, obviously Sosa's not going anywhere because he's your middle infielder backup, and Stubbs isn't going anywhere because he's your backup catcher. But those other 2 spots can very easily be upgraded. And I don't even think it's expensive to upgrade. Sure, it could be expensive to upgrade one of them, get a Lou Bob, a Randy Rosarena, a Lane Thomas, but then replacing the other one, there's plenty of guys that fit that mold that are better than Weston Wilson.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
All right, so let's go on to mine. I will say I love the Randy Fairbanks, so I just went with a different duo instead. I'm going to start with Nathan Eovaldi. I mean, that package, I'm not going to lie, the package I put in. I just realized I have Alex McFarland in both of these because I made them at separate times. So Alex McFarland, I'm going to take him out of the one with the Rangers, and you could put in Gene Cabrera. Let's do that. I totally forgot I did that. But Eovaldi excites me in kind of ways you talked about Crochet and Randy Rosarena. I know that doesn't make sense right now,
No,
but
I got you. I know where you're going.
Eovaldi is a playoff beast like Randy is, and like Crochet, he gives you a lot of flexibility with the starting rotation and the bullpen because that 2018 the year that he was on the Red Sox and they won it, and he was just berserk out of the bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the Phillies tried to sign him that offseason then to be their closer.
Yeah.
They were high on him then. I know it's a different regime, but I think they're still high on him. I like him. I know he's a little older now, but what this does is if you're facing a lefty-heavy team, like you brought up the Dodgers with Freeman and Ohtani at the top there, then I could start Eovaldi in Game 3, and then I move Ranger Suarez to the bullpen, and then all of a sudden I have him to possibly face those two guys 3 or 4 times in critical spots in a 7-game series. Or if I'm facing a righty-heavy team, it's not coming to me right now who that could be, but let's say we are facing one. I think the Padres are kind of righty heavy.
I mean, the Padres right now, the Mets are streaking, and Lindor's a switch. Alonso's a righty.
Yeah. So then, I mean, you could flip it. Ranger goes in the rotation, and then all of a sudden I have Eovaldi in the bullpen, and he could impact multiple games by getting those big righties at the top of those teams' lineups out. So I like that. I think gives you flexibility. So he's flexibility and playoff experience, and that's why I'm really high on him. I know we talked about the Rangers, like weird spot, like under 500, but not out of it. Just really odd the way the West has shaken out in the AL. So I don't know. We'll see. Phillies kind of beating up. If the Phillies beat up on the Mariners next week, and I might actually be a little. Well, that's after the deadline. Never mind. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that's why I like that one. And then I got Lane Thomas and Finnegan. I think if I had to make a bet on a trade the Phillies do make, it's this. The package going back, maybe not that part, but if there's a trade I think the Phillies will make, I think it's these two. Lane Thomas this season against lefties, slashing 329, 414, 518. For his career, he's a 307 hitter against lefties. He has speed, decent amount of power. Yeah, I think that happens. And Finnegan's ERA, I think, is currently 2.3. He's a righty. I think that's one that gets done just because it kind of bumps Kerkering down. It takes Dominguez kind of out of any high leverage situations because now all of a sudden Kerkering's your third righty, with Hoffman obviously being the one. I like that. And then I know I haven't really addressed the lefty part of it. If you want to get Tanner Scott in here too, get both of them. I'd be down for that. That would be awesome. But I think the fact that me getting Nathan Eovaldi and then you could put, I'd say they probably put Ranger in the pen over Sanchez just because Ranger's done it before. But then I have a lefty in my bullpen. So
I agreed. I agree with you in the sense that I think if, obviously they're going to make a trade, hopefully, I guess not obviously, but I'd probably agree with you that Thomas and Finnegan is the most likely package that they go after. Looking at mine, I think yours is much more realistic. I think mine's kind of a dream with, based on what the rumors are that we've kind of been seeing. I think mine's probably a little bit too costly for them than what they want to do, which is unfortunate because I think if you walk out of the deadline with, obviously, I'm in the idea that Aiden Miller is my only real untouchable. But if you walk out of the deadline with Miller and Crawford still, I think it was definitely worth it. But
yeah, like one of Kaba and Bragola still there too, I think would be kind of a win.
Yeah, so I think they'll probably go up a bit cheaper than that, but these are still two really nice hauls that benefit them. But yeah, I think Thomas is very good against lefties, especially. But I don't know. It's not the big splash that I think we're all kind of hoping for. That doesn't say that it doesn't get them better, but it's just like, and again, you don't necessarily need the huge splash when your roster is, Wheeler, Nola, Harper,
Right.
Turner, JT, all these Schwarber, all these big guys that are already on the roster. Yeah, exactly. You can kind of work around on, the upper ends of, not because I think Thomas and Finnegan and Eovaldi are all above what I was kind of talking about earlier about buying on the margins and stuff. But like, it's just so tempting when you see all these big names being rumored, and we didn't even talk about him, but the Orioles and Dodgers both inquiring about Tariq Skubal.
Yeah.
Like, you see all these big names with so much control left, and like, yeah, it's going to cost the farm to get them. But if we're looking at guys like Painter and Crawford and all of them to arrive in 2026 and 2027, like, yeah, you have to build for sustaining a franchise and seeing good players coming through and stuff. But like, when you're in such a big market with obviously the franchise's history hasn't been great, but you have such a proud fan base and such a passionate fan base. When you have these studs sitting there looking in the face with teams that are openly selling, and you kind of pivot for good players, but not like great players that we can point at and be like, yep, that moves the needle.
Yeah.
If they get Thomas, Finnegan, and Eovaldi, I'd be happy. The team would definitely be better. I think that might, cement them as betting favorites in the National League for sure. But I think I'd find myself, when 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, whenever the deadline comes around.
It's actually at 6 this year.
It's 6 this year?
Yeah.
No, that's good. I'll be done at work. But anyway, I'll find myself kind of that 6:10 mark when, the Heymans and the Morosi's and the Passons are still tweeting out stuff that funnels through the 15 minutes after that the deadline ends. If they get Thomas, Finnegan, and Eovaldi, I'll still kind of be refreshing, looking through, hoping for, something at the end, especially if the Dodgers kind of, we've seen their rumors, while the Phillies, the rumors that have been coming out we're looking for cheaper right-handed options. The Dodgers, it's been, Randy, we want Lubov and Crochet. We're inquiring about Tariq Skubal, which, like, yeah, that's what the Dodgers do every year. But like, if they go get a Crochet or a Skubal, and we're like, yep, here's, Freddie Galvis at the deadline again, like they did 2 years ago out of nowhere. It's like, at some point, your trade deadline moves have to match your off-season moves in terms of going for the big one.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to close this down soon because it's kind of going on. But a couple of things. One, they did kind of mention in spring training that they didn't do a lot in the off season, so that they have their options open at the trade deadline. So to hear that, like, now all of a sudden they're looking for like less costly targets is a little backtracking. Now, if maybe that's a smoke screen, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, Brandon Marsh wasn't on our radar before that trade happened. I didn't know who Mundo Sosa was before he was traded here. Michael Lorenzen, I remembered him as like the jack dude on the Reds, but like I didn't think about him.
Yeah, the dude that wore the Vans.
Yeah, I didn't think about him being the one that was coming here. So, it's interesting. Last year with the Rangers, I would say it's kind of the first time that the team that actually went crazy at the deadline was the team that won it all. They went crazy with all those pitching additions, and it worked out. But in years past, I mean, like the years the Dodgers got Machado, didn't do anything. the Padres got Soto and Hader, and we destroyed them in that NLCS. You know what I mean? The years the Phillies got Lee, yeah, they made it to the middle of the World Series, but they didn't win. The year they got Pence, they got absolutely embarrassed. But the year they got Joe Blanton, they won. You know what I mean?
Blanton stairs.
Right. It's hard to it's hard to really quantify deadlines because, and that year the Brewers were the big winners. They got CC Sabathia, and the Phillies absolutely crushed them in that playoff. So I don't know. It's so hit or miss. It feels like if you go big, does it actually work? It depends, I guess. A lot of things have to go right, but
for me right now, come Wednesday, Thursday, especially depending on what this weekend series against the AL Central leading Guardians with a very good record looks like.
Yeah.
Right now I'm saying, go get Randy, go get these big names because the last week and a half hasn't been great and they've, struggled to score runs. And when they score runs, the bullpen blows leads in Pittsburgh. It's like, I'm saying go get these guys because of what happened the last week. If they, have a good weekend series against a good team like they did against the Dodgers 2 weeks ago, I'll be like, yeah, great, marginal upgrades. We don't need more. But it's just when, a week before you need to go make these trades, it was honestly the perfect time for a skid, in my opinion, because it really showed you what they need as a team. So, it was right in plain sight. But we saw Brent Rooker hit 800 feet worth of home runs in Philly, and the next day they were like, we're not interested because he can't play defense. So we're making all these proposed trades. We have no idea what the hell they're going to do. So, I think we kind of showed what we want them to do based on what they've kind of shown us the last 2 weeks. But obviously Dombrowski's done a good job of building the roster. So I trust him to do what he sees best as long as it helps improve the team.
Yeah, and just quickly, I'll add this in. They signed 19 of their 20 draft picks, and the only one that didn't sign, I think, was the 14th round pick.
Yep.
So you've loaded up the system again with a good draft. You got 19
with all outfielders and the first round pick especially, but I think the first and I know the second's very fast, but he's got a little bit more power. The first and the third pick are like very, very Justin Crawford-esque.
Yeah, I know I tweeted that. And I was like, they're drafting a lot of Justin Crawford clones right now. Eyes raised a little bit. Here's what I'll say about Justin Crawford really quick. To me, I think I need someone like Luis Robert or Crochet if I'm going to deal him.
Agreed.
I think everyone else you can work out packages that go below. I put Painter, Miller, and Crawford in kind of tier 1. Tier 2 for me is kind of like Kaba, Tait, Bergola, and Clausen. Yeah. I think you can move some of those tier 2 guys. But I think for me, those White Sox guys, because I don't think Mason Miller's happening and Rooker's not happening. No. And I don't see them going out getting in this Tariq Skubal, craziness that's going to cost teams 3 top 5 prospects. I don't see them getting in that. But I think that's those 2 guys. Both of them are, a combination of one of them. Those are the guys I would part with him with. To me, there's no one else available that would make me want to do that. Randy and Fairbanks, if that was the only guy you gave up, maybe.
I don't think I'd do it.
Nah, all right. That I think about.
I was very skeptical of Crawford, but this year adding the launch angle and then moving up to Double-A and still hitting 400 in Double-A his first week, I am a Justin Crawford believer.
Yeah, I'm in 2 now. So deadline is Tuesday at 6. Phillies crazy homestand, Guardians and Yankees. So we're gonna see how that goes. Hopefully a lot better than this road trip. yeah, next time you hear from us, hopefully there's 3 or 4 new guys on the team. So we'll see. I know I work Tuesday, and then I want to watch these Phillies Yankees games. So I don't know if we'll do any emergency pod. Maybe the next day. I don't know. We'll see. But we'll definitely be back around the deadline. So we'll see you then.